Hi YouTube, it's Kathleen, aka Halon Poisoning. First off, excuse the Christmas outfit. I know it's kind of silly looking. I was at a friend's party earlier. Um, but if you pardon the silly outfit, this video is going to be kind of a serious one, and it's probably one that I should have made maybe 6 or 7 years ago. Yes, back before I had this account. But also, a lot of it does relate to what's on this account too. And it's a very, very common question that I have gotten several times, or gotten several comments about, or whatever, just over the years. And it is portraying to what my username Halon Poisoning actually means, and kind of how I developed that whole weird obsession with Halon in the first place. And because I've gotten, over time, I've gotten a lot of comments. Some people say they like the name, and some people say they don't, even though I think in either case they don't really know what it actually means in my username. I mean, there are some people that, of course, know what Halon is, but not everybody knows what I'm referring to in my account name. And we'll get to why I said I probably should have made this video a really long time ago. So I'm just going to start off by giving you the definition of Halon, and I have repeated this many, many times over my years of YouTube. It's a type of fire retardant that was primarily used in data centers, where water could, or other, it's a gas. It could damage water, or here I am with the stuttering that y'all hate hearing, or water or foam or powder or whatever could damage sensitive electronics like computers and stuff. And it was known to deplete the ozone layer, and there were many different types. There was 1301, 1211, yada 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 yada. I have a video on this account and a video on my account from a really long time ago about it. If you really want to look up more on that. But let me just start off by how I even developed using it in the context that I did over the past 7 years, and we're just gonna start from the beginning. So it all goes back to around the time when I was about 3 years old. And I had this dream, and I don't remember when this was. I feel like it was sometime around when 9/11 happened, but I couldn't tell you if it was before or after, and I don't even know if there was any relationship between the dream and 9/11 or whatever, because I was so young I didn't really understand that kind of thing. But anyways, so it started with this dream I had, and it was a dream that I was in. I was in some kind of, I couldn't tell if it was really an office or a library or what it was, because what I remembered in the dream was there were a bunch of bookshelves like everywhere, and there were a bunch of tables, some of which had these really looking things on them, and there was some machinery in the background that I couldn't tell what it was. But there had been a massive fire on the back wall of the room. And me and this other girl than I was at the time. Like I said, bear in mind, I was only 3 years old when I had this dream. But in the dream, I was pretty tall like I am now. And I feel like I probably was around the age that I am now, which I'm 19 years old now. And I feel like I was probably around that age in this dream. There was another girl next to me who, she couldn't have been more than like 16, and she was much shorter than me. And in the dream, I had red hair and very, very white skin. And this girl had more of kind of brown hair, kind of like what I have, that was real straight. And I remembered we were being chased by somebody throughout the room that was on fire. I couldn't see his face or anything. And I was talking in a language that I couldn't tell what I was saying. It sounded like a mixture of English and some other language, but I know I was begging for mercy. And what happened was, we're being chased throughout this room by this guy. And eventually, we see this big white haze just come in. And this dream is happening out of my own eyes. Like, think about it, as if this is happening to you personally. And this guy, I don't know where he went. It was like he vanished. But then the fire was put out. But my friend and I were still stuck in this room. And very slowly our skin actually started to turn even whiter. And we both started feeling sick and very weak. Like we couldn't move. And I remember even throwing up in the dream, and believe me, this felt so real to me. And I laid next to my friend, and this beam of light came in, and we were just pulled away. And that's when I woke up crying. And like I said, I was only 3 years old when I had this. I didn't understand that concept of what was going on. And I just went to my mom and told her I had a bad dream, and I went in bed with her. But, no more after that. And we'll just say about 9 years after that, nothing, there was no mention of it, no memory. I just kind of forgot about it over time. But around the time I was about 10 years old, I started to not feel right. That's when I think I was starting to develop the depression that I have. And shortly thereafter, I started feeling correlated with poison. Like, what is it? I felt like I had to be a certain kind of poison, but I couldn't figure out what. And I just went and just started developing this massive obsession with poison. Sounds weird, doesn't it? Well, I went through a few different obsessions with different kinds of poisons. When I was 11, I did this weird class report on lead poisoning, and then when I was about 12, I started watching a bunch of videos about carbon monoxide. Actually, that was around the time I joined YouTube, was on the Hyperbaric Chicken 101 account, was kind of when I was still on that. And then, around November of 2010, I was in my dorm room, and I went sleeping, of course, because we only have dreams, and I had that dream again, the same one I had when I was 3, with the girl and I being chased, and the fire on the back wall, and then that haze that just seemed to make the man and the fire and seemingly my friend and I just disappear. But the difference was, this was not out of my eyes this time. I could actually see myself in the dream. I saw myself, my face and everything. It was more like, when I had it when I was 3, it was like watching it out of my own eyes. But this time, it was like you were watching it on a movie screen. But despite that, I was still feeling the pain as if it was there. I remember feeling so dizzy. I felt so weak, kept throwing up. I just felt so ill. And I remember my friend was laying there, and she seemed to be exhibiting the same symptoms as me. and then I laid next to her. And then this song started playing. It was kind of a sad song. It it had kind of a dark meaning to it. Like, it was talking about how when I fade away, I'll be a piece of me will still be left behind. It sort of sounded like an odd remake of Broken by Seether and Amy Lee, but not really. I suppose one of these days I might develop the guts to be able to sing it. Every time though I've tried to sing it to myself, I end up crying, and I can't figure out why. But it seemed like this haze and I had a correlation. Like, I kept trying to figure out, because I remember I woke up and I felt very uncomfortable. I was coughing, and I was in a very uncomfortable state. And I felt so kind of just shaken. And I was like, what the heck was this dream supposed to be? And I felt like that haze that came in had, like, that was the main event in the dream. And I just, for the life, I just couldn't figure out what it was. And then I was on YouTube playing around one day, because I was into fire alarm equipment and safety systems, and I'm wondering if even that may have something to do with the dream, because I always thought it was just because I liked working with my hands and keeping people safe, but now that I think about it, I wonder if there's even more to that. And I was on YouTube playing around like I always did on the weekends, and I came across this video called Halon System Discharge, which was posted by this username Specialized Fire at the time. I've seen duplicates of the video are still up, but I can't find the original video anymore, so it might have gotten taken down or something. And it, of course, was a Halon system. And it was accidentally triggered, but it was this white haze that came in, just like in my dream. And I began to feel like, was that thing a Halon system? How could I even have a dream like that if I didn't even know what that was beforehand? And I learned a little bit about what a Halon system was, as well as what a few other fire suppression systems are, like FM200, CO2, all that. But for whatever reason, it was the Halon system that I felt the most correlated with. And I was like, why? But okay. And I've had this dream multiple times ever since. And I just, and it was something I just wondered. But here is where the real mistake I made was, and it's something I'm always hitting myself for this. I went around the internet spreading facts that I shouldn't have. And that was eventually kind of when I correlated the Halon system with my weird poison fascination. And I started using the term Halon poisoning online and making up facts based off of this dream I had. Not by actually looking things up, and I kept being stubborn when people would try to tell me the facts. And because I admit I'm a little bit of a stubborn person. Some of you might even know that. And it's just, and I went and did this, and I started making a bunch of videos and crap of me falsely using the term. I just went around using it recklessly. And eventually it all kind of hit me. It all hit me when this kid started, when this other user on YouTube started doing the same thing too. And I was like, well, shoot, what have I done? And eventually I went and did my research and learned my facts. And that's when the video about Halon on my old account was made. And I had been And after that, you may have noticed that I had stopped doing that, assuming you've even followed me that long, which I think a lot of the new users I've ran into over time, I think a lot of the ones that followed me from that account really aren't there anymore. But if you have, then good for you. And I couldn't believe I did that. But yet, if all the facts about Halon not having the same effects as it did in my dream, if my dream, the way Halon was portrayed in my dream versus how it actually is so different, it's not anywhere near as dangerous as my dream portrayed. Well, it depends, because there's different compounds, and some of them are a lot more dangerous than others, but I couldn't quite find it. It wasn't just Halon. I looked through all of them. FM200, Novex 1230, CO2, you name it. I looked through all of them, couldn't find anything that quite added up to what was in my dream. I even got so much as to think that it might have been a past life, despite the fact that I'm Catholic and we don't generally believe in reincarnation. I don't think nothing quite added up, and so I couldn't figure out what in the world this was. However, it got to the point when I had realized that on Specialized Shop 462, I was just not very happy with what I had done on that account anyway. And it was actually that summer of that year, 2012, that I had made this one after I'd gotten a community guideline strike for something that I still don't understand why I did, but it's in the past now. That I had actually made this account out of kind of just feeling a great disappointment over what I did on that account. And I mean, I made a video a couple of days ago where I explained what I wasn't happy about with that account. It felt like I was just throwing stuff up there, and I was like, I don't know if I was really happy with this. And so I had decided to leave that account and switch to this one around November, because I had hesitated, because I was like, well, you have gone kind of far on this account. But then I was like, no, just move on. Because you're kind of, if you think about it, this account has kind of been, you've been hiding. You need to come out and just really show who you really are. And, that's when I switched to this one. But I had repurposed the term Halon poisoning into figuring out, though, what the real definition of it when it applies to me could be. So here's what my username actually means. Halon, as we all know, is a fire suppressant, meaning it can have a great cause. It can be a saving grace, because it's like heaven extinguishing the fires of hell. So it's a great saving grace, but then it can also do great harm in the process, like how it depletes the ozone layer and some of the narcotic effects it might have on your body. Which, again, are nothing like my dream, but I mean, the reality is that yes, there are effects that can come from it, especially, if it's Halon 1301, it ain't so bad, but if you're talking about something like Halon 2402 or whatever that one is, yeah. You can figure that out for yourself. And so it's basically meaning a saving grace, meaning something that's meant to guard, like how it's meant to protect valuable equipment, but can also do great harm in the process. And then the term poisoning, a poison is something that is in your body that shouldn't be but is. So it basically means the part of me that shouldn't be but is. And Halon means someone, and Halon means a thing that is meant to do great protection but can do great harm in the process. So basically what I'm referring to in my name is that I can be a very good person. I want to help everyone and protect as much as I can, but in that process, one is known to hurt. One can do great harm in that process too. And poisoning being, it's a side of me that shouldn't be, but is, because everyone just wants to help, but no one wants to hurt. At least, if you're a good soul. I mean, I suppose, there's a few exceptions to that. But, I just want to do the right thing. And so it's kind of both a positive and a negative thing. Now, a little bit of another fun fact is that I had actually written a thread about that dream on Reddit recently. And another thing I even talked about was potentially writing a book about it. A book relating to that dream. But I was always but I'm worried a little bit about spreading misinformation if I do decide to use the term Halon. Some people were saying, well, why don't you make up just your own fire suppressant name? And I'm like, well, I'm kind of trying to find something that, might sound legit, but, because, Halon actually means something, but if I were to make up some name, like someone said something like Florin, however they said that, I don't think anyone would really know as much as what I'm talking about, because my intention was to call the book Halon System, and I'm gonna put the links to the Reddit threads if you want to read more about them. And, and some people were kind of criticizing me because it would spread misinformation, but, the reality is it's a fiction book, and people need to learn to read their facts. And plus, Halon's on the verge of pretty much being phased out anyway. It's very rarely used now. So, yeah. It's just to clarify a few things with y'all, and kind of my apologies, even though it's 5, 6, 7 years late, about giving y'all false information on on Halon and whatever. If you ever read some of the stuff I posted when I was 12, 13, don't buy it, because that's the story behind all that. I went off of this crazy dream I had and didn't look at my facts. But to this day, I still wonder what that dream means. But at least now y'all know the real reason behind my username. And yes, it seems kind of like a dark name, but unlike Specialized Child 462, which was a name I made just as a joke that I made for a day, and eventually I kind of thought that whole name was a joke, and I just really hated. I started to really hate that username after using that account for a while, because I'm like, no, that is not me. And before then, I actually had an account, and some of you might even know this, I had an account called Hyperbaric Chicken 101, and again, that was also out of a little joke I made, because I explained to my cousin what a hyperbaric chamber was, and for whatever reason, my cousin Barry, who was, he was like 5 or 6, yeah, he was 5 at the time I was explaining that, and he kept saying, I think he thought I said chicken fingers, and I was originally going to be hyperbaric chicken fingers, but I didn't have enough room for fingers, so I put 101 instead. But, that was also kind of just a one-day thing, but the name I chose for this account I feel like was a lot more thought out. And also one more opinion, though, because this is something I had given a little bit of thought about. I was actually kind of contemplating changing this username, and it's still a very relevant name to me, but I was contemplating, because some people do really complain about the poisoning part of it. I was contemplating just cutting out the word poisoning and maybe changing it to something like the Halon System or something like that, which is my Reddit name. Or maybe even doing away with the Halon theme entirely and going to just a completely different username. Maybe change it to something like White Tiger Productions. I don't know. But this name is still very relevant to me, unlike the previous 2 accounts I had. And, and over time I have become very happy with the work I did on this account compared to my last 2. That being said, I talk about a lot of the stuff on Specialized Child 462 that I was not happy with when I had that account, and I admit that there are even some stuff, like videos and comments, that I've put in this account's name that even I did 5 years ago when I made this, that even I'm like, did you really need to make that? But, whatever. That's just because when I made this account, I also wanted to be a little bit more honest about I was trying to be a lot more honest to you guys, too, about who I really was. And now that's to fully clarify what my account name means, and just how I developed that weird obsession with Halon in the first place. That's where y'all know where it comes from. And so, I'm sorry for the really long video. You guys probably didn't watch it all, because I've been guilty of that too. But I am Halon Poisoning, and I am signing out. Good night.